Hi, I'm Veronica, an attorney who builds with AI. You may have seen some of the tools I've built in a demo or on my LinkedIn or GitHub profiles. A recurring question keeps showing up in my DMs. What's your process? It's what I get asked most from innovation officers, knowledge management professionals, and attorneys. So I put together this tutorial to answer exactly that. Before we get into the steps themselves, I want to offer some background on how I actually build. I work in two contexts. The first is personal, my own time, my own devices, my own LLM subscriptions. If I'm building something inspired from my legal work, I never use client data. Instead, I build with dummy data and public sources. The second is professional, inside my firm, using firm-approved tools and LLMs. Where client matters are involved, I work only with the tools the client has given consent to. That second context can limit what you're able to build, but the mindset is the same either way, and the process I'll walk you through applies to both. The goal of this tutorial is to provide a high-level overview of how I think through building with AI as an attorney, and how you can apply the same approach to your own work. And it's designed for anyone in a law firm, regardless of title or position. Because now that AI, and specifically LLMs, are in our work environments, anyone can use them to build out their own solutions. Please note that these views are my own and do not represent my firm. This is not legal advice. The tools I mention are examples, not endorsements. And this avatar is based on my likeness, but is AI generated. Thanks for your patience as I continue to experiment with AI. All right, let's get started. Step 1. Pay attention to repeated work and what colleagues complain about. That's where builds live. Here's what that looked like for me. A colleague came to me complaining that he couldn't find anything to automatically track AI regulatory developments, flag what was critical, and map them across practice areas, all in one place. He had email alerts for changes to AI laws in the EU and UK. What he didn't have was anything to process, synthesize, and track those developments over time. He was doing that part manually, across multiple sources, every week. I heard the complaint. I offered to build something. That's step 1 in action. Step 2. Check what already exists. Before you build, ask, has someone already solved this? For the regulation tracker, I checked what we had. Copilot had agents, but they were clunky and hard to configure. Our librarians had email alerts through their journal subscriptions, but nothing that synthesized changes across multiple weeks or mapped relevance by practice area. Nothing got there. So I built it in Claude Projects, an instruction set that tracked EU and UK AI regulatory developments weekly and produced a structured digest as output. The sweep matters. Sometimes the gap isn't a missing tool, it's missing knowledge. The tool exists, but people don't know it does. If that had been the case here, the right move would have been to show attorneys the tool and walk them through using it, not build. If the gap is a missing tool, build. If the gap is missing knowledge, teach. Step 3. Define the problem at the source. Sit with the colleague experiencing the gap. Ask 2 questions. What's the actual problem? What do you hope the solution looks like? One surfaces the problem. The other surfaces their mental model of the fix. The regulation tracker is what this looks like when it goes right. My colleague already knew what he wanted. A tool that tracked EU and UK AI regulatory changes week to week, flagged anything critical for clients, and mapped relevance by practice area. He named the sources he was already monitoring manually. I had a clear picture before I wrote a single instruction. I built it in a couple of hours, handed it over, and it was close enough that we only needed to iterate. That conversation did the work. I didn't have to guess at the inputs, the output format, or what mattered. Step 4. Map the workflow and dependencies. Walk through the work with them. Surface what the build needs to touch. This is what prevents you from designing something that can't do what you intended once it's actually running. Not every build has complex dependencies. A lot of what I build in Claude projects requires uploaded documents as the only input. Mapping that is straightforward. But some builds need to reach further. For the regulation tracker, the tool needed web access to named primary sources: EURLEX, the ICO, the FCA, DSIT. It also needed a protocol for what to do when it hadn't been run in a while. A 1-week gap is different from a 3-week gap, so the output needed to reflect that difference automatically. Mapping those dependencies up front meant I knew exactly what the build had to handle before I started writing instructions. If I'd skipped this step, I would have designed a tracker with no reliable access to the sources it was supposed to monitor and no logic for handling gaps between runs. Step 5. Plan with the LLM as a thought partner. Preferably, plan with the LLM you're going to build in. For the regulation tracker, I planned with Claude because the end result would be a Claude project. This matters because the planning session shapes the output format, the inputs, and the edge cases. You want to surface those inside the tool that'll actually have to handle them. For the regulation tracker, planning it out with Claude surfaced edge cases I hadn't considered. What happens when the tool hasn't been run in 3 weeks? What if there are no material developments that week? The information I left that session with, which I saved as a markdown file, was the blueprint I built from. Step 6. Build in your approved environment. Your tool stack shapes what you build and how. Whatever you have available, Claude, Copilot, ChatGPT, take the markdown file from Step 5 and use it as your blueprint. Don't start cold. The file carries the context. For the regulation tracker, I built in Claude projects. The markdown file was the instruction set. The input sources, output format, significance rating framework, and edge case logic were already mapped. What would have taken multiple sessions of trial and error took one focused build session. Step 7. Test and iterate with the requesting colleague. Hand the build to the person whose problem this is and have them use it the way they actually would. For the regulation tracker, I shared the Claude project with my colleague and asked him to test it. After a couple of days, he came back with revisions. The first version included a client alert section alongside the weekly digest. It was too much output. We took it out. He also needed a concise executive summary at the top so he could quickly identify the most important changes. That feedback only comes from the person who has to use the thing every week, not from me running it myself. Step 8. Share what you've built if possible. Firm-wide access is the ideal, but it may require a conflicts, ethics, confidentiality, data privacy, or IT review beforehand. For the regulation tracker. After it was in use for a week, additional partners and associates requested access, and, because of the nature of Claude projects, I was able to make it available firm-wide. Step 9. Document and save in your own system. Don't depend on the LLM to remember what you built. Keep your own organizational system. For the regulation tracker, once all the revisions were in, I saved the final instruction set locally. If my colleague ever needs it updated, or if someone else asks for something similar, I have everything in one place. The sources it monitors, the output format, the edge case logic. I don't have to reconstruct it from memory. That's a high-level overview of my process in 9 steps. If you have questions, want to go deeper, or want to apply this to your specific situation, book a session with me at veronicalopez.ai. I'm Veronica Lopez, eDiscovery and investigations attorney, building with AI to fix the work that's missing, broken, or won't scale. Sharing my process because I was asked and because I enjoy it. Can't wait to see what you build.